So what I'm going to use for this project is the Journaling Girl Elegance. Now she's really pretty, but what I'm going to show you first is on the Sassy, because I've got this backing card next to me, I can't find my Elegance at the minute. So this is the Journaling Girl Sassy, but it's just to show you that on the back of your cards you have all the info you need about taking care of your Be Crafty stamp. Okay, so it's got what you do when you first get it, if you're new to Be Crafty, so you've got all of these on, and all of our backing cards are laminated. So what that means is when you get your stamps and you've started using them for the first time, you can store them on there as well. So you've got so they come with 2 sheets of plastic, and then when you've got your backing sheet and you've been using them, you've got your printed sheet as well. So if you just store your stamps on there, then stick them on there, and then all your stamps will stay together, which is fab. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be using the Elegance of our Journaling Girls, and this is her here. She's very beautiful and very well used, as you can see, and I have cut one out ready, so you don't have to watch me cut her out, because you guys can cut out, I'm absolutely sure. But what we're going to start with first is a white layer, and as I'm me, and you all know what I'm like with my distressings, we're going to use some Distress Oxides to start. So I've got a whole range of colours. We're going to go really rainbow, okay? So I'm going to start off with my Mustard Seed, okay? You could do this technique with your regular distress as well. You know, it works really well with both types, so you know, just get them and have a go, have a play. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to put some of my Mustard Seed on here, and we're going to dry between each layer, okay, because we don't want to get mud. So I'm going to put my Mustard Seed on there. We're going to spritz with a bit of water, and we're going to take our white layer and we're just going to dab it down, just getting some yellow from our Mustard Seed onto there, okay. I'm just going to keep dabbing on, and that is looking fab. But what I am going to do is I'm going to dry between each layers, and I was really good and made sure I had everything plugged in and ready to go. However, I've dropped my heat tool. Here we go. I knew it was going to happen. Okay, and then we're just going to dry, and like I say, the reason we're doing this is because we want to make sure we don't get mud, because if you are finding you're doing this technique, and you are getting sort of like a muddy colour, that's because you'll be mixing your 3 primary colours, okay? So your primary colours, your yellow, your red, your blue, okay? Now, we can mix these on our mat. So for example, you may have seen me do this before, mixing colours on the mat and whatever. But if you are mixing them and not drying in between layers, you might be finding you're getting sort of a muddy look. Now, if that is happening, that will be because you are mixing the colours on those 3 primary colours on your mat. Okay, so to avoid that, what we like to do is dry between layers, or only use 2 out of the 3 primary colours. Okay, and that will save you from getting that muddy look. Okay, you might get it a little bit sometimes, and in fairness, 9 times out of 10 it's absolutely fine, and it's not something I worry about a lot. But if you guys are, that's the best way to stop it. Okay, so we're just going to keep on adding layers. This is actually, I got this idea from one of Kaz's samples, because she did this really beautiful Journaling Girl sample, which I absolutely loved. So we're just going to add some green. So yeah, so the blue I used, was Mermaid Lagoon, and this is our Lucky Clover, and we're just going to add in that one as well. So we're just really creating this sort of colour washed background. And the nice thing about your oxides, if you're new to oxides, is you can layer up the colours in all sorts of orders. So when you're working with Distress ink, you do have to go from your lightest to your dark colour. That's pretty much the only way to layer them. But with your oxides, you can mix up the order. So for example, when we get to the end of this, if we want to add a bit more yellow, we can, and we might do. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding in some reds and oranges and maybe a bit of wilted violet purple too. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna start working around where I can see white space as well. Okay, so we're gonna start adding these in. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm adding in lots of colours, is because, like I say, Kaz used lots of gorgeous bright colours on her sample. But also, it then opens up all the colours that you can use when you're colouring in your journaling girl. Okay? Now, your journaling girls are great. They're fab for journals, obviously. But also your cards, your tags, your ATCs, your mixed media projects, you know, all the MDF in the Be Crafty MDF collection are great. And they're all on the Hochanda website for you to find. So, you know, if you're shopping by brand, you know, SBB Be Crafty, you will find all the Be Crafty MDF on there as well. So I think this is coming together really nicely. So if we just have a look there, it's really sort of vivid and bright. So I'm just going to add on some. Now this one, did you love how I looked at the ink pad then? This one is our carved pumpkin. So it's a really intense orange, I think, the carved pumpkin. So I'm actually just going to dab a couple of times. And I think that's enough carved pumpkin actually. I'm going to stay with that. And I have actually lost quite a lot of my yellow. So I am going to add in some more of that actually when we finish up. But what I want to do first is I'm going to add in some wilted violet. Okay. Now, wilted violet is a fairly new colour with Distress. It was one of the more recent additions, but it's vastly become my favourite colour. My favourite purple before that was the Dusty Concord. Absolutely beautiful colour. So, you know, if you are still working on original colours and original Distress, the Dusty Concord is an absolutely beautiful purple. Okay, so you can see that is just added in. But this is mainly a background we're working on now, so don't worry about it too much. It's just to get some colour on. We'll be adding in a lot more detail as we go through. Okay, so we're just going to add that on. Excellent. So you can see you've got all of those colours on there with lots and lots of detail. Now, I would usually mop all this up with a tag, but I've been quite good and tried to just get the things I need around me for this demo. So, you know, I don't want to go fertling for tags right now. So yeah, like I say, I actually do want a bit more yellow in there. So I'm going to go back to my mustard seed. And I'm going to put quite a bit onto our blending mat. Okay, so yeah, so I work, when I'm using my Distress for these sort of techniques, and generally I work on the Be Crafty blending mats. Okay, again, you'll find them in the Be Crafty section on the website. Okay, so we're just going to add in some more. Yeah, I'm actually going to start wiping a little bit. Oh yes, so that's added in a bit more yellow, which is fantastic because that's where I wanted to go. Alright, so we're just going to dry this off. Now I do get a lot of questions about the cardstock I like to use. Now in all honesty, this is just a white piece of cardstock from my stash. I do also really love working on linen, the Be Crafty white linen, which is lovely, but I do know a lot of people don't like to stamp on linen, so this is what I try to use, a smooth. Now I don't use a super smooth for doing Distress techniques because you might find it tends to bubble and doesn't work quite as well with your Distress techniques. Okay, so this is, so we've got lots and lots of colour on there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blending tool, because I'm still not entirely happy with the amount of yellow I've got on there. So I'm going to take my mustard seed. Now when I'm blending, again, you may have seen this before, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself. When I'm blending, I go from my ink pad to my mat and blend that way. Sam will probably show you in her demo, she puts the ink on the mat and blends out that way. Okay? The important thing is finding the way that works for you. That's what's important. Okay, so I'm just going to work around the edges, blending in this bit of mustard seed to really bring in that yellow that I was after. Okay, and I do think what this does is it sort of brings the sheet together. It, you know, whilst, you know, you've got that sort of colour washed look, which is fantastic, I think by almost selecting your one colour to blend around the edges, you get that intentional look, which is great for me sometimes when I'm crafting, because so much is, you know, what's the word? Sometimes it's just luck how it comes out. It really is. So we're just going to take off the excess there. Now, what I want to do is I want to add in some more textures and layers, and we're going to do that using the colours we've already used. Okay, so I'm going to grab a couple of different blending tools, and I have also got some of my Dinkable sets. Now, storage is another question I get asked a lot. Now, my Dinkable sets I keep in little wallets, so I've selected Dinkables 3 and Dinkables 5 that I'm going to have a play with. So again, going back to the sort of spattered inkiness about it, okay, if you like this spattered sort of effect but you don't like getting too messy, this spatter template from Dinkable set 3 is awesome, okay, because what it means is you can add in a spattered effect without getting all spattery everywhere. Okay, so again, let me just move these couple of tools out the way, or just knock them over. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our blue, which is our Mermaid Lagoon that we put on the background, okay, and I'm just going to blend it into the foam a little bit before I work through, and we're going to work through our template, just adding in, just moving it around, changing the orientation of it. Oh, orientation, that's a good word. Okay, we're just going to keep on adding in little bits of paint spatter, so you get that sort of paint spattery effect, which is great. And then I'm going to get, but then I want some more regular circles too. So this circles is also in your Dinkable set 3. Okay, so these templates are great because you've got the spatter, the circles, you've also got a sunburst and a cracked glass, which is fab. But that one I honestly do think looks best with texture paste. Alright, and you've also got a sunburst there. So I'm going to go to my, ooh, what colour shall I go? I think we'll go with a little bit of carved pumpkin, and we're going to add in some more of these regular shaped circles too. Again, work that into my foam just a little. Ah, beautiful, beautiful, that's what I was going for. Okay, and then add in a couple of little ones there, and it just gives so much more texture to your background. And this is one of the things I love to do. I love to add layers, layers and layers and layers, but not actually increasing the depth of your project too much, and ink is a great way to do that. So let me just move those to the side. Here we go. So this, I'm actually going to leave this as it is for now, because I think what I want to do is I'm going to start stamping and then see how I feel from there. So the stamps I'm going to be working with are Sam's Journal Borders. Now Sam's journaling borders actually predate the Journaling Girls by quite a long way, but as soon as I'd finished drawing the Journaling Girls, I just couldn't help but notice how brilliantly these worked with them, so that's why we had to put them with them, because they're absolutely great. So I'm going to go for this one here, which is the sort of circular one, which is great, and I've got it here. Now when I stamp onto my blending mat, if I'm stamping in black specifically, I do like to put a piece of card underneath, especially if I'm going to be stamping over. See, this is a very well used stamp, so it's lost its stick a bit. I should have washed it. Okay, and that way if I stamp over, I'm not worried about cleaning black ink off my mat. It's just a case of, but what I do need to do is I do need to decide which way I want this to go, because now we are stamping at the top and bottom, so it is a square, so I need to decide what's going to go at the top and what's going to go at the bottom. So I think this is going to be the bottom, I think. So I'm just using my VersaFine. Now I will say, a question I'm asked a lot is, you know, when we go to shows, which unfortunately obviously we can't do at the minute, you know, or you use VersaFine, but I prefer Memento or Archival, or I even prefer just stamping with my Distress. That's absolutely fine. You know, it's your project. What you have, you know, you have to pick the. We're just here to tell you what we use. Okay, so I've stamped that circle border on the bottom of there, and like I say, your excess piece of card has just captured the excess, so you're not worried about wiping VersaFine off your blending mat. Believe it or not, I do actually try to stay clean. It just never works. Okay, so we're just going to carry on, because then I'm going to put another one on the top. So straight down, push along, straight up. There we go. So we've got our top and bottom, if you want to see. There we go. All right. So then this is the thing. So I've knocked that down. So I've just taken that away, and it means my mat is still clean to work on, which is what we really want. So I'm just going to give that a quick waft with the heat tool, just to make sure it's absolutely dry. Okay. Now, because what I want to do is I want to add some colour into these circles. All right. So again, we're going to use the oxide colours we were just using, but you could use watercolour pencils, you could use your Inktense, anything like that. Absolutely great. I'm just going to move my Dinkable Set 3 out of the way. Alrighty, so I'm going to go, I think I'm going to do some carved pumpkin first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squish some onto my mat. That's not the mister I was using, that's the mister I was using. And then I'm going to grab a paintbrush, and then using these we're just going to colour into some of our circles. Okay, we're going to turn it round, and again we're just going to colour into some of our circles. Now obviously the more water you add, the more translucent it becomes, the more ink, the more opaque. Okay, so if that's gone a bit watery for you, all you need to do is add in a bit more ink and then use minimal water, and you'll get a much stronger, more opaque orange. So you can see this one here is much more opaque than say a couple of the ones down here. So it's really up to you how you want them to look. Okay, so I'm going to again just take off the excess off there, and I think we need to add in a bit of blue. I think we need to add in a bit of blue and then maybe some orange. So I've still got quite a bit of water on my mat. What I should have done was clean my paintbrush off, but that's okay, because that's gone to a bit greeny, which is fine. So that's why I'm not going to change that. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Okay, and we're going to add in some of our blue into our dots. It's just such a like I say, these borders that were drawn by Sam, they came before the Journaling Girls, but they just work so well with them. You know, they're such a similar style. So as soon as, you know, we started putting the show together for the Journaling Girls, we were just like, well, they have to go with them because it just works. I'm going to take a little bit of that green actually to fill that one in. And then we're going to go around and do that one. You don't have to do them all. You don't have to do any if you don't want to. It's just a case of, I'm just doing it just to show, it's just a different way of using them, putting them together, which is great. So I think, what do we think? Do we think a red? Yeah, I think so. We'll go in with Abandoned Coral. On there. We're gonna, oh, I need a bit more Abandoned Coral. That's a bit translucent. But again, like I said, you could come in with your Inktense, your watercolour pencils, your acrylic paints, you know, and really make them quite zhazzy. But I think this layout here would also look great in a journal. A lot of the projects I do on her channel, a lot of the demos would work brilliantly as journal pages. But I just like to show you, and I think that's the thing. I don't, you know, people say to me, what do you prefer? Do you prefer cards or scrapbook pages or journals? In fairness, they're not mutually exclusive for me. I use similar techniques to do both. So you can see we're really building up our colours on there. So the background, which was kind of, I don't know, almost haphazard, is now starting to come together upon a theme, which is what we're after. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that another quick blast with the heat tool, because I want to go in with my white pen and highlight a few bits. Okay, now white pens, I use the Ink Essentials white pen and various others. I am one of those where whenever I see a white pen I must have it. But all white pens are the same in that they prefer a completely dry surface. Okay, so if you are using your white pen, you need the surface underneath to be completely dry. So if you are working in your journal and you've been using acrylic paints, you know, even though they might be touch dry, you are best leaving them 24 hours until they are completely dry right down to the core. So we're just going to add in, but you could also add in sort of stitching detail around your border. That would be quite cute. Well, we could do that, couldn't we? Just add a little bit of stitching along that side. Just work our way along. So you can see when I get to a bit that's not quite dry, the white pen's not coming out as well. But that's okay, because you can always go back in. So add a little bit of the stitching detail along this edge as well. So you can see I've just added in a little bit of stitching detail and highlight on these circles. That way they're almost sort of like bubbles. But you know, I am one for the white pen. I do like a bit of adding a bit of a white pen. I'm just going to go in and just continue this stitch line across this border. Now I have to say, I've turned it around that many times now, I can't remember which side is the top and which is the bottom. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. It's beautiful. I'm actually really, really happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go to our journaling girl. But before then, I'm actually going to stick this down on its layer, I think, so it's ready to go. What I might do first though is I'm going to go to my Dinkable Set 5. Oh, I haven't finished. There's a few more things I need to add on. I've completely lost the... So, Dinkable Set 5. This has got this triangle lattice in it, which is such a useful one. It's actually my favourite one to doodle through. So if I just grab a fine liner, because you can, the thing with your Dinkables is you can paint through them, you can emboss through them, you can get a fine liner that works. Let's try this one. There we go. That one's not working either. Typical. Right, last ditch attempt. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, sorry. So your Dinkables, you can paint through them, you can spray through them, you can blend through them, all of those exciting things. But what you can also do is you can doodle through them. You can have a really good fun just doodling through your Dinkables too. And I will say as well, the Dinkables are made from the same 350 micron mylar that all of the Be Crafty Inkables are, so they will also emboss on your embossing machines as well. Okay, so let me put that to the side. And I'm going to get my piece of card back because there's a couple of other things I want to do. So and I'm actually going to take these. I'm going to take some of the backing ones from both my Elegance and my Sassy that I have. Okay, so I'm going to take this little one here because you'll see, I probably should have gone through this earlier, shouldn't I? You'll see you've got the eyes on here, but you've also got some accessory stamps too. Different things you can use to make up the layers, and there's loads of DT samples to have a look at and have a play with. So I'm just going to grab one of my Super Skinnies. So you can tell I like this one, it's green. You will see on the back where it talks about cleaning your stamps. Yes, that's one of those. Yes, please clean your stamps. I don't clean my stamps. Stamps are, the more you ink them, the happier life they have. So I'm going to put one there. I'm going to put 3 of these up here, quite close together. Always in the odd numbers. Okay. Yeah, so you've got your accessory stamps there to play with as well, which will help you build up scenes and layers and lots of different things you want to do. Okay, so then I'm going to go to my Sassy, and I'm going to take this one here, and again I'm going to put her, I have no idea. I'm going to put that onto there, and I'm just going to add this on in a few different places across here, and then I'm actually going to move my excess piece of white card, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as a mask across my border. So using it again is to pick up excess ink, and I'm going to use this heart border that's on Elegant, because what I want is I just want the top of the border that's kind of got the zigzag on. Put her on there, and then it's not crossing over onto my border I've done at the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to take that off, put it on there, because I can't blame Sam today if my stamps disappear, can I? And I've put them in the wrong place. Okay, so and then I'm going to take this flower. So this is the big flower. There is a smaller version of this on Chia. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to place this flower on the top of that stem. There. But not only is there a smaller one, I think it's on Chia, there's also this one on Elegant, which is a smaller one. And I'm just going to put this one on the top of those stems. So you can see, I'm just going to put the lid on my VersaFine. We've sort of made the sort of flowers go along. Alrighty. So again, my VersaFine's a relatively new ink pad, so I'm just going to give that another waft with the heat tool just to make sure I don't smudge it, because I mean look at the state of my fingers already. And that's when I'm trying to work clean. If you do have your, if you work on the Be Crafty blending mats as well, don't heat directly on them. They're alright for a quick waft or whatever, but if you heat too long on them, they will buckle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm going to go back in with my white pen. In fact, I'm going to go back in with my white pen. We're going to add in just a few white highlights. These ones around here. Again, you could, if you wanted to, go in with your distress colours and add in, you know, colour these ones in different colours. But I'm happy just putting in some white highlights here. Again, I'm going to go around to the ones on the other side. Oh, I forgot that one at the bottom, didn't I? I'll go back to that. Alright. So we've got this one here. I think this is the thing, you know, if you see a lot of white detail on a project, sometimes you can think, oh, that'll take ages. But it actually doesn't. It really doesn't. You can just go in with your white pen, just adding in little white circles. And I do think on a project like this, which has got a lot of colour already on it, I do think just a little bit of white detail can look really, really good. But that's just me. You know, you guys can, you know, you could go in with a really bright coloured pen. You could, you know, use any of your colourings really, and go even brighter and mix more. Especially if you know, if you are working on a journal page, absolutely brilliant. Right. So from there, I'm going to get some tape. She says, looking at the roll, that looks significantly low. So I'm actually going to get some 3D foam, because I'm going to 3D this foam layer on, because I have already made a black layer onto my 8x8 card. So this is a 7x7 square, and I'm working on an 8x8 card. So what I've done is I've cut the black layer, it's 7.5 by 7.5, okay, to give me a border. So let me just check I'm sticking the right way. So we'll just take these off. And then we will get to our beautiful journaling girl. I've already done that one. Okay, so we're just gonna about square. Looks about right to me. Okay, so then you can see on that black layer, it just really makes the stamping pop, really pop out, you know, which is why I like to layer on a black layer if I'm stamping in black. Okay. Like I said, I have already cut Elegance out, but what I am going to do is I'm going to stamp her for you too, because I want you to see how beautifully she stamps. So for her, I need this size super skinny. Okay, so I'm just going to put her on there. I'm just going to ink her up with the VersaFine. And I'm going to turn her over and just stamp there. Okay. She's not massively detailed, but if you know, if you do worry about getting the pressure on the inside, just lift up one of the corners while your fingers are in the middle. And there she is. You know, she does stamp absolutely beautifully every time. Beautiful girl. Okay, so, but like I said, I have already got one cut out here. So let me get some of these things out the way, because I have got myself in a messy old pickle again, haven't I? It's how you know it's me, really. Right, okay, so we're going to start colouring her in. Now, what you can do is you can paint her using the distress we've already been using, which is I think what I'm going to do. But again, you could use your alcohol markers, your watercolour pencils, anything like that. Okay, so I am just going to go in with my oxides. I'm going to do her hair first. She's a very dashing blonde. Well, she is today. Sam always says about Elegance she's sort of had like a really bouncy blow dry. Because, you know, she's got quite a voluminous hair. So Sam describes it as a bouncy blow dry. I wouldn't know. Try a bouncy blow dry with my curls. Oh dear. I'm not sure what that would end up like. Okay, you can see as well, when I've cut her out, I've left a white border. The reason for that is it's easier. That is pretty much it. It is easier. And it's also one of the reasons, if you add in, you know how I've just said about we've layered onto a black layer to highlight that stamping and bring it out. If you are leaving some white on your image, like I am doing, by adding in the white highlights, it sort of brings all that together. But in fairness, you could always paint around them as well. You know, you could leave the white surround on her just because it's easier to cut out, and then paint it in with a complementary colour. That would be absolutely fine too. Okay. So I'm going to add that in, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the carved pumpkin to shade slightly. Just shade in some of the, just so it's not all one sort of colour. You know, just blend that in different areas. Really don't worry about it too much. It was just to give a slightly different tone in different areas. Okay, put a little bit at the back, so you can see it's just giving her those different tones. Now here we go, and then I think we're going to go for a purple. We're going to go for a wilted violet on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that almost like one coat of the wilted violet, and then I'll go in with some more for the shaded areas. And I think we'll go for wilted violet shoes as well, because I think that just works. Alrighty. So I want to go back in with my wilted violet again, just to add in a bit more density on one side, just to get a sort of, so it's shaded out slightly. Okay, so, and then with blue, the Mermaid Lagoon, I'm just going to spritz and go in. I'm going to work from the outside, and again go for a little bit darker along the seams. And then I think we'll go a bit clash-tastic. Well, I don't know if it will really. And put some Lucky Clover for the handbag. I do love a handbag. Don't really use them, but I actually love them. Okay, so put that on, and you can see, getting ready to put her on here. Absolutely fantastic. We could bring that in by giving her green fluff on the top of her boots. Alrighty. Okay, now what I am going to do is I'm going to go into my Inktense going to take some of this colour here and a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to water that down quite a lot. Might need a touch of... Oh no, gone too far, gone too far. Might need to pull some more yellow into that. Okay. I'm just going to go... That might be still a little bit too opaque. There we go. I'm just going to bring that in there. And then down the arms. A little bit shading around the edges of her face. Okay, so she looks great. Now I wasn't going to give her, because I actually do like these without the eyes on, but I think I am going to give her, because on hers she's got this excellent sort of, because there's two sets of eyes on each one. So these are the sets of eyes on there. And this one is fab. It's sort of like a raised eyebrow, which I really like. And I wish I could do. I cannot do a raised eyebrow. And I will say, we have asked the team at Hochanda extensively as to who can do a raised eyebrow. And I'm positive at last count, nobody could. Absolutely nobody. Okay, so I'm going to put her eyes on there. A little bit over stamped on one, but that's okay. And then I'm going to heat with my heat tool. I'm just going to add in, like I said, I have over stamped that one just slightly, so I'm just going to go back in around there. Marvellous. And then again with my foam pad, because I'm going to put her on 3D. I think she's going to go right about there. Okay, now also on the show we've got the sentiments we've chosen to go with the girls, because I think they're the best ones. Is ticker tape 1, 2 and 3. Let me put them in order. Okay, now again with storage, people asking me about how you store your stamps. Okay, I keep my sentiment stamps of that size in a little wallet, very similar to the Distress. Now for this one, I'm going to go with ticker tape set 3 from my prep board. Now if you guys have seen me do this before, I stamp out all the sentiments and then chop them up, and then they're here when I am ready to use them. It's actually looking a little bit depleted at the minute, so I do need to do some more. But the one I'm going to go for is Life is Change. Growth is Optional. Choose Wisely. Okay, and I think I'm done. I may go back in and add in some white pen, because I just cannot resist it, to be honest. But I'm really happy with her, and I hope you guys are too.